Hello and welcome to the Conversations with Brighton. And this episode, this is my introductory episode. I would like to just give a little brief on the work that I intend to do and a little bit of a background and description of who I am and what interests me in this life, and you can then see if any of that stuff interests you. I think there will be more people willing to come back because they see something that they think they might want to engage in or engage with. The main reason I want to engage in conversations and using this platform, in this way of podcasts, is because I believe that, or not I believe, but it's more of a fact that we share the same space, we share the same planet, this rocky blue planet that we call Earth, and because we share the same space, I believe that our actions have consequences, not just on ourselves, but on other people. There's some people that we share space with, and certain consequences can be harmful to other people. And despite of how we, despite of our intentions, we can have consequences that stem from the actions that we take. So, and I also believe that I believe that actions are driven by belief. I think belief influence action. I think that's more accurate if I said that way. And I do believe that if we want to live in a society where we minimize the consequences that come from the actions that we take, the way to do so would be to try and expose our beliefs out there, and to try and challenge the beliefs that are out there through honest and intellectual conversations. And that's at least what I would like to attempt to do. I don't want to give the false impression that I will be able to do that, or that I will do that perfectly. I think my intention is of importance because I do acknowledge that there's a possibility of failing dismally on that journey, but the best I can do is to try my best, I guess. And the kind of conversation that I would like to engage in is those conversations about topics that do have an effect on the progress that we can make as a society, the kind of topics that do impact how we make progress in the direction of creating the world where there is as little suffering as possible, and we maximize the happiness for everyone in it. So I think that ranges, those we're talking about topics that range from belief in or discussion on politics to discussion on morality, discussion on, I think, what we can call tools that we adopt in our attempts to build this world, because I do believe that we do share the same goal. Most people really want to live in a world where everyone is happy, I think. And I'm not saying this is the case for everyone, but I would like to believe that most people share the same goal. But the tools that we can adopt to achieve that kind of the world can either help us get to the goal, or they can and maybe they don't, or maybe they can even be harmful towards the goal. All right, so what we need is we need to get from point A to point B, and point A is where we are now as a society, and point B is this, utopian world that we're trying to establish. And it's going to be important which path we choose to move from point A to point B. It's possible entirely that we can think that we are going toward point B, but all we're doing is moving in the opposite direction. It's possible that we might take a longer route because we don't have the right map, or we can adopt different vehicles towards the goal. And I think some vehicles and some pathways would probably be more desirable than others. And what I think the importance of conversation is to try and find ways that are desirable and adopt those tools that are desirable, that are going to help us create a better world for everyone. So I do believe that we've got the capability of trying to find the right methodology, I guess. All we gotta do is try our best. Is to try our best, because I think that's all we got. Yeah. So I will. The format of this podcast will constitute both discussions where I'm just talking about things just solo by myself. Other kind could involve having guests to the podcast. I think I hope that will be probably the best way to proceed forward, because I do believe that we grow more and we learn more when we engage with other people, and mostly people who share a different way of seeing things and different approaches to in this journey, so of getting from point A to point B. So I think it's important that we try to engage as honestly as we have to be so much aware that, or remember, we have to remember the reason we're doing this. We're doing this because we know that there's a possibility that we could be wrong, that there's a possibility that we could be failing to see things a certain way, a way that's actually helpful. And once I think the more we acknowledge that, the better we are more likely to find ways that are desirable. So I do believe that outside of us, outside of our opinions, there's something out there, something, I don't know, maybe we can call it the truth, that despite of what we believe, it's independent of what we believe. We can choose to ignore certain phenomena that's happening in our society, and we can choose to ignore the possibility that perhaps we're not taking the right approach. We can choose to ignore that, or we can choose to lie to people about certain phenomena, but that would not change the narrative itself that's happening, right? And I think there's a lot of things here in this world that we perhaps are choosing to ignore, and I don't think it's intentional choosing, but I think I'm describing what is happening, the current state of the world, and I think there's certain things that we with best intentions we take them, and we most of us can try and ignore certain phenomena because we're just not seeing it. And so I think the best way to remedy that is to have conversation. I really see conversation as the only way. I think if we want to share ideas and if we want to develop a better world, then we gotta work cooperatively together. And the way we can exchange ideas is either through conversation or is through violence. And I think every single time I'm always gonna choose conversation over violence, and not because violence, not only because violence is bad, but because it's also not desirable towards. It's not an effective tool. I think there are people who can disagree with this and can push back on this, and I really hold that opinion strongly. But I'm willing to chat about that and and see where other people are coming from on why some people might think that violence is desirable, is an effective tool. Yeah, and this is a conversation that I've had actually, and I think I've seen some pattern, I think, in how some people see this, and that pattern is I think failure to make a distinction between defense and violence. So yeah, this is something that I would be happy to have someone over on the podcast and discuss it further and give the audience the chance, I guess, to hear different or opposing views. All right, so I think that was a little important to mention there. I think this is something that's probably going to happen. I think at some point I'm happy to, because I think I try also to acknowledge or to notice things that people have got different opinions on. And I know that there's some things that I've said already that people would not necessarily agree with. So I don't think everyone believes in the concept that there is something outside that's independent of how we see things, something that I've called the truth. And I think the people who hold the contrary view that there is no such a thing as the truth. I'm using the truth here. I'm not talking about a truth. I think I'm talking about the truth in the sense of in an objective way, I think, if I can use that word, although it's quite a loaded term. So yeah, that is something that I would want to, because what compels me to expose my ideas out there is because I believe is the belief that there's a truth out there, and I could be thinking that I've got a hold of it, I've got access to it, when I really don't, when I'm just merely mistaken, and maybe I've managed to deceive myself, and and I think the only way to find out is through conversation, honest conversation. I think. Yeah, so I'm not just here to, I don't think I want to be here to be defensive of what I believe. I'm here because I want to challenge my ideas. Yes, and I would like to open up this platform. I think I would like to see this kind of thing happening. I think I'll create some kind of a ripple effect. And I know that there's already people who are already in these conversations, people who are trying their best to use conversation as a tool for achieving a better world for everyone. I think I'm just joining this space, and I just want to make my contribution towards encouraging that in society. And I want to do my best to also use that as a tool to create a better world, and to make sure that we live in a world where everyone is happy, and everyone is happy, has got equal access, and everyone, is living a meaningful life, I think. Yeah. So welcome to the journey, and if you think you're gonna I think you're gonna have to come back again to actually assess fairly and sufficiently if you're gonna like the work that I will be doing here. But I mean, if you think that you would like to start showing your support for this, I think you can start by just subscribing to whatever platform that you're listening on. If this is YouTube, please just subscribe there. And if this is Spotify, do make sure to have a follow. I think if this work is any important, then I think it's gotta get out there, and the way we can get it to get out there is is through sharing it and through subscribing. That's part of the support, I guess. Yeah, and I think if I ever have a point, if I get to a point where I've got a structure of what's going to happen in the next episodes, I would make it clear. I would make it known to the listeners. But for now, I'll see you next time. I think I don't want to make promises about how the structure is going to work or who's going to be on the podcast next or what am I going to talk about next. I think I would do my best to work on that, but I want to get a clear picture before I can make any promises. Thank you. It's been nice having you. I hope that was fun with conversations with Brighton.